The Nacc Podcast. Know the corruption. Know the truth.
Welcome to the Nacc Podcast, Know the Corruption, Know the Truth. And today's episode we invited you to know about cultivating a culture of honesty to prevent and suppress corruption. What do you think is the universal problem of ties in the world?
If it's for ties, I think which came first, the chicken or the egg? I've seen people arguing about it in ancient times.
It might be close, lol, but personally I think the problem of lack of transparency and corruption should be a universal problem because we've heard about this problem for a long time. But it still hasn't been solved.
That's right, because the mission is never complete, so society and the world are in turmoil.
In fact, the problem of lack of transparency and corruption is a problem that occurs all over the world and is getting worse every day. It is also a problem that every country wants to eliminate.
In Thailand, it's not just organizations or government agencies that are continuously and seriously campaigning to find ways to solve problems, prevent, and suppress corruption. The private sector is also aware and alert to the problem of corruption. It can be seen that if many forces help each other, the more power there is, the more resistance will affect those who think about corruption. To put it simply, we can create an honest city if all parties help each other.
Yes, that's right. What's interesting is that I've heard that there are many ideas and tools that can be used to fight corruption, such as instilling and campaigning for corruption. This can be seen from the Thai private sector collective action against corruption, which is called in English the Thai Private Sector Collective Action Against Corruption. CAC.
Have you ever heard of or known about this group? From what I know, this group aims to create an and a private sector group to create a movement against corruption voluntarily in the form of a group of action, in which there are more than 1345 private companies that have announced their intention to join, and there are companies that have been certified, that have set policies and practices to refuse to accept and pay bribes, including all forms of corruption, totaling 499 companies.
With such solid data, we can see the private sector's awareness and the power to voluntarily join in creating a movement against corruption. It is commendable.
Let's listen to the core of the project so that we can understand the operating principles, which are 1. Changing the attitudes of business leaders to refuse to be involved in all forms of corruption. 2. Pushing the government sector to improve its work processes to be transparent, accepting participation, and being auditable. 3. Promoting and expanding a clean business network free from monopolies or buying advantages from bribes. Committed to doing business by giving importance to combating corruption, and committed to complying with the law on prevention and combating corruption, fraud and corruption, giving or receiving bribes, bribery, to government officials both domestically and internationally, or officials of private sector agencies, as well as supporting and promoting personnel at all levels to have awareness in combating all forms of corruption.
Very strong in principles and practices. Now, let's listen to interesting case studies of companies in the private sector. It is a company that drives towards a moral organization based on the creation of good and capable personnel. For example, the Sambun Group SBG has a policy in managing human capital and conducting business in the form of 3 Sambun, creating balance, called the Sambun Triple Bottom Line, which consists of smart people, creating value for oneself, the organization, and society, aiming to create employees to be capable and good. Creating benefits that create value for oneself, the business, and society sustainably. Business trust, creating value to respond to stakeholders. Creating business value based on the principles of good governance. The philosophy of sufficiency economy, and increasing business value with innovation. Growth society, creating opportunities for a strong society. Promoting happy coexistence with society. Focusing on creating educational opportunities and being a source of learning, as well as promoting the community economy. It is noteworthy that conducting business in the form of three sambun, creating balance, creating values and cultures that are good examples, being passed on to the next generation, and developing continuously with the belief that instilling in people positive changes, developing various skills, seeing their own value, not being corrupt, working with transparency, with the principles of good governance and sufficiency. It's called awesome.
If both the public and private sectors work together to actively resist corruption, it may result in a reduction in the corruption problem.
Yes, that's right. Because in the past, corruption problems occurred from both the givers of bribes, which are private individuals, and the receivers, which are government officials. Therefore, the most effective way to prevent bribery problems is to prevent both parties. Because when there are no givers, there are no receivers.
And the business sector does not have to spend costs on unnecessary giving. In addition to reducing the company's costs, it also shows the intention to do business with transparency, which does not risk breaking the law. It's called truly elegant.
Don't forget that there are 3 levels of corruption problems. 1. Small-scale corruption, such as receiving unfair or improper money from government officials, which is not a large amount of money, in order to perform certain actions for the giver. 2. Large-scale corruption, which is mostly corruption by high-ranking officials who receive large amounts of bribes in large public utility projects. Policy corruption is also classified as large-scale corruption. 3. Giving valuable gifts, such as cars, gold necklaces, buying travel packages to go on vacation abroad, or inviting them to go on vacation abroad to build close relationships.
Now that we know the level of corruption, we must learn about the laws that can be used to deal with corruption problems, according to the 2018 Organic Act on the Prevention and Suppression of Corruption and the Criminal Code. It is a crime for both the giver and the receiver of the bribe. According to Section 143, whoever demands or agrees to accept property or other benefits for himself or another person in return for inducing or motivating an official, a member of the National Legislative Assembly, a member of the Provincial Assembly, or a member of the Municipal Council, through corruption or illegality or through his own influence, to act or refrain from acting in his duties, which is beneficial or harmful to any person, shall be liable to imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or a fine not exceeding 100,000 baht, or both. Section 144. Whoever gives, offers, or agrees to give property or other benefits to an official, a member of the National Legislative Assembly, a member of the Provincial Assembly, or a member of the Municipal Council to induce an act, refrain from acting, or delay an act that is improper in accordance with one's duties, shall be punished with imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or a fine not exceeding 100,000 baht, or both. Section 149. Whoever is an official, a member of the National Legislative Assembly, a member of the Provincial Assembly, or a member of the Municipal Assembly, improperly requests, receives, or agrees to receive property or other benefits for oneself or another person, in order to act or refrain from acting in any way in the position, whether such act is proper or improper in accordance with one's duties, shall be punished with imprisonment of 5-20 years or life imprisonment, and a fine of 100,000 baht, or death.
Do you believe that Thailand has the most anti-corruption laws in the world? With more than 200 sections, and the highest penalty is severe. Up to the death penalty. However, the problem of law enforcement is that it cannot be fully enforced because sometimes there is a lack of evidence and no one can provide clues. Therefore, creating prevention through instilling and campaigning may be a better solution than suppression.
Even with so many laws in force, corruption in Thailand still shows no sign of abating at all. Please tone it down a bit. Let our country move forward with a national budget that does not disappear or leak along the way due to corruption, so that Thailand can develop and progress in the right direction for our children and the future of the country.
Honest, fair, professional, transparent, and verifiable. Office of the National Anti-Corruption Commission.